Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me for WLBT Plus. My name is Kara Shirley and I am your digital news desk host. I am here new to the WLBT team and I'm very excited to be here. I'm going to go over some of the top stories that have happened over the weekend in our area. We're going to get a look at our weather with our first alert weather teams on Peyton, and then we're going to be talking with CJ LeMaster later on in the show to get a behind the scenes look or behind the investigation at the investigation that WLBT did for the Goon Squad or the Rankin County S6. So we'll be talking with him later. First, though, I am going to go into the stories that we have right now. And of course, one of the biggest ones right now in our area is the violence that we experienced over the weekend here in around the Jackson area. We have one person that is dead after an officer-involved shooting. Mississippi Bureau of Investigation said that the shooting happened around 4 o'clock on Walker Drive in Florence. That was on Sunday. And the Rankin County Sheriff's Department, they responded about a call for a person that was threatening people, and when they arrived, the man started shooting, and of course the deputies returned fire, and they did kill the man that was there. Then also Jackson police are investigating a homicide that happened off of Highway 80. The victim was pronounced dead at the scene, and the detectives do have a person of interest in mind. We will keep you updated on that. Another situation that happened over the weekend here in our area is one person's in custody in connection with a shooting that happened at a Jackson birthday party on Sunday night. So this happened on Mary C. Jones Park shortly before 8. 5 people were injured. Zakia Winford allegedly got into an altercation with one of the victims, and JPD says that she pulled out a handgun from her purse and opened fire. She not only struck her intended victim, but she also injured 4 other people, 2 of those being juveniles. She is facing charges for 4 counts of aggravated assault. And of course, if you have any other information regarding this, JPD is asking you to give them a call at 601-960-1234, or of course Crime Stoppers at 601-355-8477. Now, one other thing that we are looking at, and I'm going to take you to screen right now so you can see what we're looking at on our WLBT website. Parents are being charged after a 13-year-old fatally shot a friend. Now, this was an accident. The child got a hold of the gun and pulled the trigger and accidentally killed another boy that he was playing with. This is not, or this is something that we have heard about all too much, and it is a very sad thing that it happened there. No deputies, they were able to determine that the 2 boys were the only people inside the home when the shooting occurred, and the boy that pulled the trigger is being charged as an adult with manslaughter, culpable negligence, and his parents are also being charged. The mother is being charged with contributing to the neglect or delinquency of a child, and then the father is being charged with contributing to the negligence or delinquency of a child and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. We are, of course, keeping the parents of that other 13-year-old in our thoughts here. Is absolutely a horrible thing to have to not only go through, but on a holiday weekend like that. So we are very much keeping those parents in our thoughts. No, something else that happened here in the Jackson area, and this was on Friday. You guys probably remember seeing a lot of smoke in the sky. Well, that was from the Jackson Energy fire. We're still waiting to find out what caused the blaze. Is that with Jackson Energy's renewable diesel plant? I remember heading home. I was on I-55 and looked over and saw this huge billow of black smoke. And then not too long after that, I got the alert from WLBT letting me know what that was that happened. Now, Jackson Fire Department, Patrick Arman, he's with the fire department, and he says they are working with their arson investigator to find out an update on this, what exactly happened. It did start about a little after 3 o'clock on Friday in the plant's main process unit structure. So no employees or emergency personnel were harmed or injured, and of course other areas of the plant were unaffected. Thankful for that. They said that is thanks to the speedy response of Jackson firefighters. The Jackson Energy credits them, and so as soon as we find out, learn what happened with that, we will definitely keep you updated. Now, something exciting that happened down in Brookhaven on yesterday, that was they got a huge cross installed there. It's 150 feet. It's the state's tallest cross, weighs 52,000 pounds, and in the sunlight shines a very bright white. It towers over East Haven Baptist Church. I'm going to take you to our computer real quick where you can see right where East Haven Baptist Church is, located on Highway 84, just off of I-55. And the cross is just absolutely gorgeous. So the pastor there, Dr. Hal Kitchings, started as the senior pastor there last year. And he says that after being at the church for just a little while, he decided to share a tentative vision with the congregation, that tentative vision being the very large cross. Let's go now. We're going to take you to what Pastor Hal had to say about this.
This is a message of hope that's not just for our church or even Lincoln County. It's for all the others that might drive by here and need a place just to reflect, think, process things that are going on in life, because life's not easy, and Jesus is the one that gives us hope.
Look at how gorgeous that cross is. It is huge. So it's $200,000 is how much it costs for the construction of the cross. There's plans to light the cross so that it can be viewed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I bet that is a gorgeous sight to see. I am definitely going to have to go down there to Brookhaven and check that out, because it's amazing to see that. Now, real quick, we're going to look at the week ahead here in Jackson, what's going on around the area, and let Holly tell you guys all about that.
Monday, April 1st, former Canton City engineer Rudy Warnock will appear in federal court in downtown Jackson. Warnock and 3 others were indicted on bribery and wire fraud charges in December of 2021. Warnock is accused of directing payments and rewards to Eric Gilkey and Andrew Grant, 2 former Canton aldermen, and Cleveland Anderson, a former commissioner of the Canton Municipal Utilities District. U.S. District Court Judge Henry Wingate had rescheduled the case several times since 2023. The trial is set to begin at 9 a.m. Tuesday, April 2nd, there will be a runoff election for the 2nd Congressional District's Republican nominee. The Secretary of State's office announced this after they received all certified results for the March primary election. Ron Eller and Andrew Scott Smith are the 2 individuals who will appear on the ballot. Mail-in absentee ballots must be postmarked on or before the runoff election day and received by the Circuit Clerk's office by April 9th. Jumping into your weekend, you'll want to block off your calendar for a few family-friendly events. Friday, April 5th, is Ladies' Night out on the brick streets in Old Town Clinton. The Main Street Association will be hosting its Dinner and a Movie event at 7:30 p.m. and showing the award-winning movie Barbie. Local businesses will be decked out in the iconic hot pink color and have plenty of Barbie-themed items for you and your family. There will be a Barbie box photo op, giveaways, and more. You're encouraged to dress up in your favorite Barbie-inspired outfit. Saturday, the Mississippi Museum of Art invites you to a special preview of a 22-photograph exhibition titled Thank You, Please Come Again that captures photojournalist Kate Medley's 10-year journey through the heart of the American South. Medley's images focus on roadside service stations and convenience stores that double as eateries. The exhibit will be open from 11 a.m. to 5 and will stay open until June 23rd. Finally, Saturday night, grab your boots and cowboy hats because one of country music's top rising stars will be performing at the Brandon Amphitheater. Riley Green will be bringing his Ain't My Last Rodeo tour to Brandon with special guests Tracy Lawrence and Ella Langley. The concert begins at 7:30 p.m. and you can get your tickets on the amphitheater's website. To stay up to date on all the latest events happening in the Metro, visit our website, wlbt.com. Holly Emery, 3 on your side.
For pretty excited about Riley Green. Love Riley Green, and I would love to be able to go see him out at the Brandon Amphitheater. Let me know if it's something that you go and check out, and we'd love to talk with you more about that. Speaking of talking more with you, you guys can definitely join the conversation or join the newscast here. Or actually, it's not really a newscast. It's kind of the news unscripted here. But you can join us at YouTube. You can go to our YouTube page and watch the live stream there. If you have any questions, any chats, anything like that, go check that out. So we're going to hop off of here real quick, but we'll be back in just a few minutes. I'm going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Peyton Garrison on getting a first alert look at our weather. So we will be...
WLBT Morning News gets you ready for what's happening outside your door.
Taking a look at our first alert radar this morning.
WLBT Morning News is where you'll find Mississippi's most accurate forecast and how to prepare for news that will impact your day.
Breaking news overnight.
And it's happening right now in Jackson.
On your side with WLBT First Alert Weather and anything you need to know for a day with no surprises. Start your day with WLBT Morning News. Weekday mornings from 4:30 to 7 and streaming on the WLBT News app.
I'm in pain.
Real people.
It should be terrifying to all of us.
It was dangerous.
Real problems.
I mean, that's unacceptable.
How can we work to change things?
Real life solutions. Investigate TV Plus.
Watch weekdays at 2:30 on WLBT. WLBT Morning News gets you ready for sudden weather changes.
Taking a look at our first alert radar this morning.
It's where you'll find Mississippi's most accurate forecast and the only station giving you a 10-day weather prediction, not just 7.
Gonna zoom into the Jackson Metro so you know what to expect as you head out the door this morning.
WLBT First Alert Weather is Mississippi's most accurate forecast from Mississippi's most trusted station. Start your day with WLBT Morning News. Weekday mornings from 4:30 to 7 and streaming on the WLBT News app.
WLBT First Alert Weather gets you ready for everything. Every sudden weather change, every tornado threat, every day of the year.
Alerting you at the first sign of changes in the weather with Mississippi's most accurate forecast.
Sunshine and chilly mornings, you'll know first.
Need an umbrella? You'll be the first to know.
Strong storms, you'll know first.
Weekend plans? You'll know first.
Because when we know is when you'll know. Be ready for everything with Mississippi's most accurate forecast from the WLBT First Alert Weather Team.
WLBT First Alert traffic in the morning means no more unexpected roadblocks on your morning commute.
I've got the latest on the traffic conditions.
Start your day with WLBT Morning News. Weekday mornings from 4:30 to 7 and streaming on the WLBT News app. WLBT, 3 on your side investigates.
Looks like this place actually hasn't been used in some time.
On your side.
I'm about to cry.
With investigations that get you results.
My travel? Yes, we'll have a statement for you.
Learn when issues will impact you.
That proves why we need to have this investigation.
Follow 3 on your side investigates at WLBT.com or stream it on the WLBT News app. WLBT is 3 on your side and Mississippi's most trusted station. Your most accurate 10-day forecast is on WLBT Morning News and the WLBT First Alert Weather app. The only station showing you weather predictions 10 days ahead. Wake up with WLBT Morning News 10-day forecast. Weekday mornings from 4:30 to 7. WLBT is on your side.
And if it wasn't for you, we still wouldn't have knew.
Breaking the most important stories.
The court declares a mistrial in the matter of the state of Mississippi versus William Irvin Edwards.
The police, they screwed up the investigation because they really didn't investigate.
Breaking news that impacts you.
Where's the governor gonna stop? Where's it gonna stop?
We are WLBT, 3 on your side. Mississippi's breaking news leader. Watch WLBT live and on demand with the WLBT News channel on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and YouTube TV. Stream Mississippi's most accurate local news with daily updates with our First Alert Weather Team and exclusive content from 3 on your side investigates and Studio 3. And the best part, you can stream anywhere at any time. Download the WLBT News channel and watch Mississippi's most trusted station for news and weather. WLBT Morning News gets you ready for what's happening outside your door.
Taking a look at our first alert radar this morning.
WLBT Morning News is where you'll find Mississippi's most accurate forecast and how to prepare for news that will impact your day.
Breaking news overnight.
And it's happening right now in Jackson.
On your side with WLBT First Alert weather and anything you need to know for a day with no surprises. Start your day with WLBT Morning News. Weekday mornings from 4:30 to 7 and streaming on the WLBT News app.
I'm in pain.
Real people.
It should be terrifying to all of us.
It was dangerous.
Real problems.
I mean, that's unacceptable.
How can we work to change things?
Real life solutions. Investigate TV Plus.
Watch weekdays at 2:30 on WLBT. WLBT is Mississippi's most trusted station during severe weather.
Welcome back to WLBT Plus. I have our meteorologist from our First Alert Weather team, Peyton at Garrison here. How are you doing, Peyton?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a new month, it's a new week, and yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a little hot, but
yeah, I agree.
It's the first pretty warm day of the year, I think, out there. But we got some. I'm not looking forward to the really hot part of the year. It's not at all, but it's going to happen. That's just Mississippi.
Yeah, it's just Mississippi. It's gonna happen. This is tolerable heat wise, but I mean, the humidity, it's up there today.
Yes, it is. So what are we looking at as far as tomorrow? When do you have a timing planned out?
Yeah, so really between 11, 12 o'clock, that lunchtime hour, and through about sunset. So around 7 o'clock is when there could be some storms around. There's also a low end chance that they could be severe as well. Doesn't look anything too concerning, at least for our area. But again, the risk for storms, strong storms, not completely zero. So that's a part of the forecast for tomorrow.
All right. Well, of course, download the First Alert Weather app, and our team here will definitely keep you guys updated. Thank you so much, Peyton.
Thank you.
So we are going to go to another quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking with CJ LeMaster about behind the scenes investigation, or behind the investigation of his story with the Goon Squad. We will be right back.
WLBT Morning News gets you ready for what's happening outside your door.
Taking a look at our first alert radar this morning.
WLBT Morning News is where you'll find Mississippi's most accurate forecast and how to prepare for news that will impact your day.
Breaking news overnight.
And it's happening right now in Jackson.
On your side with WLBT First Alert weather and anything you need to know for a day with no surprises. Start your day with WLBT Morning News. Weekday mornings from 4:30 to 7 and streaming on the WLBT News app.
I'm in pain.
Real people.
It should be terrifying to all of us.
It was dangerous.
Real problems.
I mean, that's unacceptable.
How can we work to change things?
Real life solutions. Investigate TV Plus.
Watch weekdays at 2:30 on WLBT. WLBT Morning News gets you ready for sudden weather changes.
Taking a look at our first alert radar this morning.
It's where you'll find Mississippi's most accurate forecast and the only station giving you a 10-day weather prediction, not just 7.
Gonna zoom into the Jackson Metro so you know what to expect as you head out the door this morning.
WLBT First Alert Weather is Mississippi's most accurate forecast from Mississippi's most trusted station. Start your day with WLBT Morning News. Weekday mornings from 4:30 to 7 and streaming on the WLBT News app.
WLBT First Alert Weather gets you ready for everything. Every sudden weather change, every tornado threat, every day of the year.
Alerting you at the first sign of changes in the weather with Mississippi's most accurate forecast.
Sunshine and chilly mornings, you'll know first.
Need an umbrella? You'll be the first to know.
Strong storms, you'll know first.
Weekend plans? You'll know first.
Because when we know is when you'll know. Be ready for everything with Mississippi's most accurate forecast from the WLBT First Alert Weather Team.
WLBT.
everybody. So we are back. I've got CJ LeMaster here. Come in a little. I know you said you had onions for lunch, right?
Yeah, I did. This was not a very well thought out decision, everybody.
Well, I'm not going to be mad at you about it. So you're good.
Thank you for that.
So we're going to look at behind the investigation, and we're going to talk about the Goon Squad. And the Three on Your Side Investigates followed this story from, before the beginning of it, really, because we've done stories on some of the officers that were involved.
There are some parallels here. I think about the horrible situation with George Floyd when I think about how this story kind of began, because much like that situation, the law enforcement agency puts out, this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
There was a shooting in Braxton, a rural part of Rankin County. Everything's fine. The individuals have been arrested, and there wasn't a lot to it. There wasn't a lot that was really given, and you hear that, and you always wonder, is this really what we're getting? And we wonder that more and more when we hear this from law enforcement now, because of instances where it doesn't match what actually happened.
Right.
But it wasn't until lawyers came forward for Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, these two men who were now we know brutalized and tortured and sexually abused, and their stories start coming out, and then and even then it's like, well, we hear what they're saying, we're going to cover the story, we don't know how far this goes. And at that point, I was starting to get information from sources saying it's as bad, if not worse, than what they're saying.
Wow.
It's really bad. And then I'm just like, okay, well, that doesn't help us at this point. We don't really have anything we can put on the air yet.
Right.
One of the first things that we requested, because there was a question as to whether or not there was any evidence of this happening. And so we immediately looked to body camera footage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to have body camera footage available? And so we asked for body camera records basically showing when those cameras were turned on and off and how long they were on. And there was a major window where there was no body camera usage when this was happening in this house in Braxton with these two individuals and several other Rankin County deputies, and we know one former Richland officer. And so that was the first sign that maybe, okay, there's a lot more to this.
Mm-hmm.
The indictments come down, and then we start to see the extent of it, and it is horrendous, for lack of a better word. You can't. I can't describe for you how reading that and trying to decipher that, and then you're trying to think, well, how do we put this on television too? Because there's certain things we can't say on TV,
right.
But you also can't diminish what happened to these two men, because this is a horrible situation. These officers have now pleaded guilty. They've been sentenced, at least in the federal level. They were sentenced just a few weeks ago.
Right.
And I'm glad that we have the chance to talk about it a little more in depth, because there are so many things here that still are unanswered, and things that we still are trying to dig on and find out the answers to. And I think that we only have more questions now that these guys are going to be facing some serious jail time.
It makes you hear about what happened with them, and the brutality and all of that. And when you look at the full scope of the story of at least what we have, you think, how is this happening now in this day and time? How is this happening still? And it's a horrible crime against these men who, regardless of what they did, may or may not have done, nobody deserves treatment like that.
No, nobody does. And what's interesting about this story is that when you look at the level at which not only they committed these acts, the tasing, the daring each other to tase, the sexual abuse, the torture, the waterboarding, then you start getting into the part where it's like there were significant efforts to cover this up. And you can't look at what's in those indictments and say this is a one-off.
Right.
This is only, and that's kind of where we come in whenever, and what we'll talk about a lot as we do these segments. It's, when we're looking at something that we need to look at and investigate further, one of the things we look at is something, and I hate to say one-off again, but is something an outlier? Is this just a random thing that's happened? A 13-year-old gets killed. I'm making up something right now. So I'm just saying somebody gets killed on an ATV. Is this an outlier, Are there problems in that area with the enforcement? Is this happening more often? Is that particular vehicle have a defect? Was this person who was driving, were there other elements involved? Were there other individuals who might have caused this to happen? You start looking past the initial information that we have. And to me, the biggest thing where we start to sink our teeth into whether or not this is an investigation is if there's a track record, if there's a history of things. And so you see the extent of these men's, the efforts to cover up this crime. They've done this before. And then lo and behold, just going through court records, we found several cases where Hunter Elward, where Christian Dedman, and where others were mentioned by name. Britt McAlpin, who was basically the fourth in command at the Rankin County Sheriff's Department, who was essentially giving the orders to go and in this case to go to that house that night.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot that we still don't know as far as we know there's been a lot that's been reported in the New York Times, Mississippi Today, cases stretching back nearly 2 decades. But then you think about the cases that have been tainted. You think about whether or not you have to go through with a fine-tooth comb on every single case that Christian Dedman and Hunter Elward and Brett McAlpin and Jeffrey Middleton, all these guys touched.
It calls everything into question.
It's all tainted now.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, you think with this these law enforcement, we talk about is this a history of this happening, and how is the person's mind? How do they get their mindset to do something like that? We look at the history of one of them, and I know WLBT did a story on one of the officers a few years ago where he was actually saving lives.
Yeah, there was a situation where he was and I believe it was Hunter Elward, I think was the deputy, the former deputy, and I mean, you never can know when when you interview somebody, and we interview police all the time, we interview deputies all the time, and you never know. I guess it shows that you really truly never know somebody.
Yeah.
You never know what can happen. We see it a lot with elected officials, where we'll cover somebody left and right over and over again, and then somebody gets caught up in a DUI charge, or somebody gets caught up in embezzling, and I say get caught up, but they're actively involved in it.
Right.
And so you get kind of jaded working in this business because you don't know, which public officials, who's really walking the walk and who's just out there to make a quick buck. And we see a lot of that in Mississippi. Hinds County is not alone in that. Rankin County is not alone in that. We just saw this situation where somebody scammed Madison County taxpayers out of nearly $3 million. It happens. And I can't stress enough, and this may be a recurring theme for anybody watching, we try our best to make sure that we keep up with these things that are happening. But we're not everywhere. And we rely so much on tips from people. We rely so much on tips and information. Hey, you need to look in this. Maybe request records with this guy. This guy might be double dipping. This might be happening here. Those are the things that help us. I can tell you nearly all of my investigations have come from tips.
So, like with this situation, which happened with the Goon Squad, what do you think was the one thing different about this case that made it come to light?
I think, and I think you could go one of two ways with it. I think if, because to explain a little bit about what happened, and I know some of you are probably already familiar with it, but over the course, they get the call, deputies get the call to go out there after a neighbor had said that some black residents were there with a white woman, and there was some implication of something going on.
Right.
And so then they arrive, they kick the door down, and all this stuff starts happening and plays out over the course of 2 hours. But to your point, your question, I think everything changed when the gun actually went off, because it looked like he was trying to just scare the guy, or whatever, and who knows what was in his mind. I think if the gun goes off and Michael died, I think if the gun goes off before it's anywhere near him, I think these guys would have probably been able to cover it up. I think that especially if he wasn't injured. I mean, when you're shot in the mouth, that's something that's very difficult to play off. And,
Right.
But you look at the history of some of these cases we've seen that have come out, and again, in the New York Times and others, and you see these guys, these folks who were some white, some black, who were beaten up by deputies.
Yeah.
Their mugshots have, I mean, they just look, you can see it all.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that wasn't enough to raise alarm bells. It took something major to get somebody's attention, and it took, frankly, the legal team here, Malik Shabazz, who's not from Mississippi, who comes from out of state, and the local counsel, Trent Walker, who is a resident in this area. It took them bringing that out, and, you know, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard from people who say, we knew this was happening.
Yeah.
We knew this existed in Rankin County. We just did not know it was this bad. And then some others saying, well, you know, I'm not surprised at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it really shows you we only can really truly do our jobs well when we have a pulse on what's happening in the community.
Right.
And what I look back on this, and the one thing that I regret is that people did not trust us enough to tell us these things.
Mm-hmm.
Did not trust us enough to be able to tell us what was happening, and thank God the lawyers were able to get that. And again, once these guys started pleading guilty,
Yeah.
it just dominoes. Everybody started going down, and obviously there's still a lot that is being investigated. We don't know whether or not Sheriff Brian Bailey will be indicted at some point. We have no idea what's going to happen there, but this is an incredibly just sordid look at how this one group was operating inside a law enforcement agency in a location where folks would tell me, I'm not driving through Rankin County at night. I'm not doing certain things at night. And you have to put a little bit more credence into what folks are saying when you see something like this happen there. And there are some good guys, I'm sure, that work on the force there, which in every law enforcement agency you have some bad apples that make it bad for the rest. But it's going to be really tough to rebuild that image at this point because of all of this and the fact that it existed for so long. And in McAlpin's case, he was almost management. I mean, he's fourth in command and allowing it to continue.
Right.
And not just allowing it to continue, probably allowing it to prosper. And they got more and more bold as they went on.
Mm-hmm. Which is obviously so. And what happened, you know, with this case that came out, what do you think, CJ, would need to happen with the sheriff's department for the community to trust them again, to believe that what they say is true and that they're actually doing the best for the citizens here?
Well, you know, what we're hearing from people is that there are a large number of people that do not want Sheriff Bailey to be in office. And obviously, in our position as journalists, we can't take, you know, positions in any of that, political positions in that. What I can tell you is that the case that he has put forth, the claims that he has made in saying he had no knowledge of any of this, in saying that you know, he would have taken action. He can't watch all of his deputies, and there are dozens of deputies who work for the Rankin County Sheriff's Department. I think almost, I know well over 70, 80, maybe over 100.
Wow.
And so it is a lot to keep track of, but he is the guy in charge.
Right.
He is the top guy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have something like this, then, and not to quote a Facebook commenter, but it's that thing of where, okay, so if you tell me you didn't know about it, shouldn't you have?
Right.
And, you know, or are you just lying and you actually did know about it? So either way you go, it doesn't look good for leadership at the sheriff's office. And, you know, obviously they have a consultant. They've had somebody come in. They've revamped their policies. They're doing all this. They're getting that out there. The undersheriff, Paul Hawley, left shortly as this was unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows what's going to happen in the future. I think that the federal government is going to be watching this department very closely to make sure that whatever happens and whoever comes in, that they are abiding by the law and not taking the civil rights of residents and the liberties away like they did with this situation. The one thing that I will say is I think that what you're going to see happen, I think you're going to see efforts, because there's already been press conferences about this, to mobilize to try to see if Sheriff Bailey can be removed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well that will succeed.
Yeah.
We have no idea. I know Mississippi law requires certain things. There are also portions of statute that say that in certain situations that Bailey can actually be removed and somebody else temporarily put in place. You know, this all happened or came out before election, before he was running for re-election, and nobody was actually running against him, and nobody ended up running against him even after all this came out. And so even though he won, there were a substantial number of write-ins that did not want him at all, and it was almost a form of protest to put that in there.
Right.
But we don't know what's going to happen. I can tell you, I can't remember the last time that a sheriff in Mississippi has been removed from office through petitions. And I know the process is very convoluted and very difficult because they don't want to make it easy for just anybody to be able to do that.
Right.
Which makes sense. But I think you've got enough public outcry here that I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't actually see something. And obviously we do. We'll cover it, and we'll let viewers know what's going on. But I don't think we've heard the last of resident outrage here. I mean, you know, we're going to have state sentencing next week on the 10th, and the state sentences are likely going to be much smaller than the federal sentences. Now, they are concurrent, meaning they're being served at the same time, but the plea deals from the AG's office were much lower than what the feds threw at these guys a couple weeks ago. And so I think what you're going to see is once that's over with and these guys are actually serving their time, I don't think it's going to die down. I think it's only going to we're going to see a fever pitch with this, and you know the DA's looking through cases to make sure that the guys that handle these cases to see how much has been tainted and hasn't really told the public how many cases might be affected here.
Right.
And so that has to work its way out. There's a lot of things here, a lot of collateral damage that comes with this, and I wonder, as many of you are watching, whether or not the sheriff comes out of this. And because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the feds are going to do. I haven't heard anything from my sources. We don't know what's going to happen where that's concerned. If this kind of stuff's been happening for the last 20 years, and by the way, Sheriff Bailey was not in office for all 20 of those years, you know, as far as the sheriff, but it's a pretty significant situation. You got the civil case too. The civil case, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker have a $400 million lawsuit against Rankin County, and you know, in federal court, and so that's going to play out as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how the county argues that these claims aren't true when these guys have already pleaded guilty to them.
Right.
So I don't know that we've seen something like that before, not on this level. And so we're just going to see all this stuff play out.
And we will definitely be keeping you up to date on that. The Three on Your Side investigation team is watching it. CJ, I know you're watching it. I just want to add real quick, talking about the sheriff saying that he didn't know. We did a story earlier today, and it's on our website right now. Two 13-year-olds. One had a gun. They were playing with the gun. One 13-year-old shot and killed the other 13-year-old accidentally, and the parents are facing charges now. The parents, because they were the one that was in charge of this child. And so if we can do that for the public, you know, everybody else who, you know, you are the one that is in charge of this, you know, makes you think, why the things got to fall the same. I mean, for the officials.
I mean, that you would think that the chief law enforcement officer of that agency would be ultimately responsible for what his guys do.
Yes.
And you would think that any policies and if you have, you know, in this case, body cameras weren't turned on. That's the least of your worries. But if these guys were operating with impunity and not turning their body cameras on, and there were other instances where this was happening, where we see these other cases, that's a track record. There are taser logs that show excessive taser use from these guys and other members of the sheriff's department who have yet to be indicted, by the way. And so it's obvious that there are other things there that if you're just looking at this information, you could have seen this, you could have handled it internally, you could have held a press conference about it, you could have shared that with the public. The fact that none of that appears to have been dealt with I mean, I just feel like these guys' actions alone speak to the fact that they thought they could get away with it. And that's not operating in a vacuum. That's operating in an environment where you feel like you have, it's almost like criminals. Cops will say this all the time. When somebody steals something and they get away with it, they get more bold and more bold the more they do, and they graduate to more serious crimes. Imagine what these guys, what kind of power these guys thought they had. Not just to shoot someone in the mouth, not just to assault them in every way possible, but then to be able to cover it up, to destroy evidence, to plant false drugs, plant a gun, plant the claim of one man holding a BB gun, false charges, and then have the confidence to think that they would be able to see that through and never have to deal with this again. That is, those guys felt like they were untouchable.
Yeah, they did.
And ultimately, the lengths that they went to and what happened with that, the gun going off was probably the best thing that ever could have happened here. And I hate to say that because it's all horrible, but it's even more of a travesty if we're finding this out 10 years after it happened. It's even more of a tragedy if nobody ever knows about it.
Exactly.
And so, thankfully, we were able to find out very quickly that something wasn't quite right with this official story. And as we learned more information, we put in records requests. We asked for more information. We tried to get answers. The sheriff had his first press conference, could not tell us when these guys were let go, would not identify who these guys were. There were questions we had about protocol and procedure, and he was, for the first time, not really being, he was deferring to his attorney.
Right.
He was deferring to his attorney, who is paid by taxpayers, but frankly is not elected by them.
Right.
So you have somebody who's paid to basically answer for you, but you're not doing what you should be doing in that office, and which is taking responsibility and addressing things because you're the person that was elected.
Yes.
The buck stops with him.
It does.
And I think that what you're going to see as this goes on is there's going to be a concerted effort to show more of those connections. And we have not found anything that we're ready to publish at this point that shows that. But I can promise you that if we do, you're going to see it. Yeah. We're going to have it on air, and we're going to do our best, if we have that information, to reach out to the sheriff to get his response.
Right.
I do not think, in a lot of these cases, this happens all the time with investigations. We have one we're doing right now. We're reaching out to a public official repeatedly since February. I'm not going to say who it is because the story's not out yet. Reaching out to an elected official since February, and they're not responding. They're not even reading the emails, the requests we're sending. And we're trying to tell them, we want to hear your perspective here. That's missing from what we know. Because we can investigate all day long.
Right.
But we need to hear from that person and hear their reasoning behind it. And maybe there's something they can share that we didn't know about. And when you don't have that perspective, it hurts, but it also makes you look like you have something to hide. Because, elected officials have to be able to talk to their residents and their constituents, and the easiest way to do that is right here.
That's right.
Is on camera, is with reporters, and getting their message out there, and coming clean when something happens.
Yeah.
It's the best thing you can do. When you try not to say anything, it just makes things look worse.
It really does. It really does. Well, CJ, thank you so much for joining me here on my inaugural WLBT Plus and Behind the Investigation. We're going to definitely be hearing more from CJ with other investigations that you are in the process of right now. In the future, I tell him to save a little bit for me. Save a little bit for me here.
Yeah. Well, and I hope that again, I probably answered a whole lot more than you asked me, and I apologize. But I think that the biggest thing, and if there's something that for whatever reason, if there's something that I didn't answer that you have a question about, let us know on social media. Let us know. Reach out to us. You could email me. You certainly can email Kara. We're not. It's not difficult to reach us.
No.
And I want to help answer as much as I can about this. I am not an expert by any means, but I feel like it's our job to kind of look at this stuff and digest it, and then help you understand what you need to know about it. Because I would hate for everybody to have to go through those indictments and read all of that. I mean, it's not good reading. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And but that's why we're the ones who have to look at that stuff and and digest it and see, well, how does this affect people? And I think there's no instance where you see these kinds of things these guys pleaded guilty to, and there's no chance they work in law enforcement again. There's nothing in there that shows that any of it is excusable.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining me here on WLBT Plus. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and I won't have CJ with me tomorrow, but I'm sure the show will be just as fun with someone else, maybe, hopefully. All right, thank you guys so much. Y'all have a great day. Well, if I can make it go away.